Hey, Coach K, is there a quick way to render wood and concrete?
That's a great idea for another Sketch It video. Before I sit down and get ready to render materials on a particular concept sketch, I'll collect visual examples, right? Some photographs. And so in this case, I have two different swatches of an oak wood. There are tonal and color differences between the two swatches, but really what I want you to take a look at is on the swatch on the left, you have very fine grain or fine veining that's going on, much kind of lower contrast, while the one on the right has much more contrast with its veining. And also, you'll notice the knots, right, which is kind of a clear indication for most people that, as a signifier of wood. So, generally speaking, in the early concept sketch stage, I'm not preoccupied with the species of wood, and therefore, when you look at a lot of my sketches that include wood, they're all rendered kind of the same, right? So it's a formula that I've developed to indicate or to convey wood in a concept sketch. So in the video now, you're watching how I applied the marker, and there's a lot of tonal variation in that marker applications, but it's just one marker. So a few different coats, but I've left the streaking, ironically, in this case, is really kind of beneficial because it mimics what wood does. It has a lot of variation in it. But the important thing, I think, is really in the pencil or Prismacolor pencil application. You can see that how varied the line weights are. And that is a matter of holding your pencil very lightly and applying different pressure to the pencil as you're going down the length of the board. That will give you that variation. And also, you can see that there's kind of a waviness to it, which mimics what wood does. Again, if you look at the left or right sample that are on screen now, I've included here also a gray board. I have frequently students that say, "Well, I couldn't render it because I didn't have a brown." Well, wood doesn't have to be brown. There's faded wood, there's old wood, and there's also, just as far as rendering is concerned, you have to use the tools that you have, right? So if you don't have brown markers or earth tone markers, then you're going to have to use grays to get your point across very quickly. You really don't need a whole lot of variety in your marker and pencil. Both of these examples, both the brown and the gray, utilized one marker and two pencils. The brown had a dark burnt umber Prismacolor and white, and the gray is just a black Prismacolor pencil and white. So you can see very quickly you can get a lot done with very few supplies. Now moving on here to concrete, and there's a couple of examples on the top of the screen. Both examples are of a cast concrete, but what's really associated with concrete is some tonal variation, just like the wood, and also the pitting, or the little air pockets that get captured in the concrete. It could also be some concretes have an aggregate in it, some variation in small stone or pebble. But in this case, most cast materials for products don't really use the aggregates. So what I'm really focusing on is trying to get that pitting effect, and I've decided I needed to go a little bit darker. So I'm putting on a second application of marker, and really it's going to come down to applying tonal variation, and then also the kind of the pitting, or the air little air pockets that exist in the concrete. You can note too, both in the wood examples as well as this concrete. Now I'm just rendering little swatches. This is like what you should do to practice, right? They're literally just little swatches on a page. I'm not looking at perspective or anything like that. It's just literally, how do I communicate materials with marker and pencil. So the marker, you can see, kind of ran outside or bled outside a little bit of the guidelines that I gave myself for the concrete. It's a square. I had little short rectangles for the wood boards, but I'm not really preoccupied with how rough the application is. It's run over. I know that I can come back in, just like I'm doing right now, with much heavier marker or pen and clean things up. And that's a really important skill to master. And that's why precisely I'm doing it here. I'm doing it for practice. I'm cleaning things up, learning how the pens feel, the thicknesses of the nibs, and just really getting familiar with it. And you've got to do extensive practicing in order to master all that. So again, here I've got a white Prismacolor cleaning up some of the lines. I'm actually putting in highlights. So the highlights are kind of interesting, right? Because these materials don't normally have strong highlights, but I've included them to enhance kind of part separation. All right, so now we're going to move on and take what we've just learned and apply it to an ideation sketch page. The product that we're going to sketch today is a contemporary park bench, concrete and wood. So I included a few samples here at the beginning of other park benches that are out there, and they can serve as inspiration or reference samples for material application, but also take a quick note of the shadows involved. I thought that was pretty good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to speed up the video here a little bit and step back so you can just watch how I apply the material to 3 different ideation sketches on the page. Think about composition, and also I'll include an example of material application without any marker at all, just pen and paper. All right, so let's get started.
Bye.